G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. I'd like to make a movie called A.B.C, Analysing, Bravery and Cowardice regarding guns. And of course it's also regarding the situation in the excited states of Norte Americano, where, to recap very briefly, there's roughly one gun per person in the nation. However, only 1 in 4 Americans owns any guns, but they obviously own 4 each on average, maybe only 1 or 2. Some people over there own 20 or so. There's a gun, at least, in 32% of American households. Difference between 25 and 32% is that some Americans live in a household where one person owns guns, but not everybody in the house owns guns. So 32% of households have a gun, 25% of Americans own at least one gun. But 75% of the people in America are brave enough to live their life without feeling the need for a firearm for personal protection or self-defense. Which is interesting, because America is a country where, relatively speaking, people have a fairly high chance of being shot to death. 11 per 100,000 per year. Now compare that to Scotland at 0.2 per 100,000 per year, or 1/50th of the risk. Or in Australia it's 0.14 per 100,000 per year. So I have 1/74th the risk of getting shot to death in any 12-month period compared to somebody who lives in the excited states of Norte Americano. And on the face of it, yeah, righto, it sounds like they're living in the OK Corral, doesn't it? You know, with gunshots ricocheting off the bathroom tiles every time they go to clean their teeth. But another way of looking at it is, if you pretend an average American has a 90-year life expectancy, right, and the women have about 87 and the men have about 78, but let's pretend they've got a 90-year life expectancy. That would mean you'd need a group of 100 statistically average Americans, and I know there's no such animal as a statistically average American, but you'd need 111.1 of them before one gets to die by gunshot in their 90-year life expectancy. And I'm sure there are some places in the excited states where maybe 1 in 50. Maybe if you're a black fella and you're in Chicago or Detroit or Harlem or somewhere like that, you could be looking at 20 before one in the group gets to die by gunfire. But between 1 in 20, 5%, you know, and 1 in 111, less than 1%, that's your chance of actually getting shot in the excited states. And to deal with that level of minuscule threat in the overall grand scheme of things, this 25% have a firearm. And let's say that in Australia, we used to have guns in 15% of the houses in 1995, and in 1996 Martin Bryant took a AR-15 to a tourist attraction. Now, he's a certifiable moron, IQ of 70, he's kind of autistic. He was the sort of person who had enough money that he could afford to buy return airline tickets so that some poor bastard would get trapped in the seat beside him and have to listen to him. Right, nobody would talk to him. He got bored enough that he took an AR-15 to a tourist attraction and he killed 35 people. So, in an enormously brave act, Flak Jacket Johnny, the quivering coward, our Prime Minister at the time, decided to get rid of semi-automatics so that at least a nutcase going off would have to work the bolt to fire another shot, which gives people time to run. He also decided to get rid of pump-action shotguns because at close quarters, you know, they're absolutely devastating in terms of the wounds they inflict and the number of people they can hurt. They got rid of anything with a magazine capacity over 5 rounds. Now, that didn't say so much out loud, but it meant that all your World War II and World War I vintage short magazine Lee Enfield 303s, gone because they've got a 10-round magazine. So all the guns that were really good at killing people are out. Admittedly, you can still buy a hunting rifle. But the people who've got a hunting rifle for shooting at rabbits or pigs or deer or goats or foxes or camels or buffalo or whatever the fucking hell they want to shoot, they're buying the gun to shoot at something other than people. Right? It's not like somebody going in and saying, I want a driver's licence so that if I lose my temper, I'll be able to jump in the car and drive across the road and run over a heap of people who are making too much noise in the middle of the night. Alright, saying I want a gun for self-defence, it means you are admitting that you are not brave enough to face the future without having deadly force close at hand, so that if you choose to decide to shoot somebody you haven't met yet in a situation that you can't define because it hasn't happened, you want to spend time and energy and resources now in the present preparing for a hypothetical frightening situation that's got a statistically highly improbable likelihood of ever coming about. We'll try and forget the fact that if you go to the top of my scrolls you can see the results of a test by an American police combat instructor group to see what effect concealed carriage of weapons by people who were not highly trained in combat techniques would have in a mass casualty surprise hostage situation. And in every case, the person carrying a concealed weapon was shot and killed. In every case. The only one of them who actually got a shot off back was the person who was utterly untrained. And the only reason they got the shot off was they didn't notice they'd already been hit in the helmet. So they were shooting after they were dead, you know, it was a video game scenario for them. However, let's just continue to consider the idea of bravery and cowardice, and even paranoia. And the best way I can think of to get a bunch of American patriots to consider my point of view on bravery and cowardice is to have a look at what the American dictionary says. Here we have a Webster's dictionary. Ain't it a big one? The preppers and the nuts run amok from the National Rifle Association, they like to venerate tradition. So we'll go with a Noah's Webster dictionary. And it's nearly 50 years old. Page 211. Brave. French, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian. Bravo, brave, meaning fine. Modern definition, brave, fierce, gallant. From the Danish brave and worthy. Courageous, bold, daring, intrepid, fearless of danger. Fearless of danger. So, if there is a danger, you don't quiver in your boots about it and worry too much. As a brave warrior, it usually unites the sense of courage with generosity and dignity of mind. Second meaning, gaudy, showy in dress, as she made a brave show at the races. Third meaning, excellent or admirable, which is rare. Synonymous with valiant, gallant, valorous, fearless, undaunted, bold, heroic, intrepid, daring. Brave as a noun, a bully, a man daring beyond discretion or decency. Hot braves like thee may fight, said Dryden. Or a boast, as in a challenge of defiance. An Indian warrior, a term first applied by the French. A brave man, one who is daring, also brave people collectively, as in the home of the brave. That's the excited states. The excited states of Norte Americano. They love calling themselves the home of the brave. We also have brave, verb 2, braved, braving, to defy, to challenge, to encounter with courage and fortitude or without being moved, to set at defiance, to dare, as in the rock that braves the tempest, from Dryden. Second, to carry a boasting appearance of, as to brave that which they believe not. Third meaning, to make showy, to adorn. Synonymous with dare, defy, encounter, challenge. So, somebody who is brave is kind of like the opposite of somebody who's a coward. Like Cindy over there, she's brave. She was the second grey kangaroo to learn to eat bread. Okay, so coward is kind of like the opposite of brave. It is some person who is more or less focused and fixed on fears, apprehensions, anxieties, things that might happen, things they're afraid of. But let's see what the dictionary says. Okay. Coward. Relating to a coward pertaining to cowardice. Timid. Coward, from French, a tail and the depreciatory suffix ard, or cadua, a tail, and the depreciatory suffix ard. So it's like the arse ender, the one who's last up to the danger. A person who lacks courage to meet danger, a poltroon, a timid or pusillanimous man. Example is, where's the coward that would not dare to fight for such a land? Okay, so Scott was a thief. In heraldry, a term given to an animal born in the escutcheon with its tail between its legs. Synonymous with poltroon, craven, dastard. A coward is in general sense one who is afraid to meet danger, real or imaginary. Imaginary, did you get that one? A poltroon is a mean-spirited and contemptible coward. A craven is one who shrinks back at the approach of danger. A dastard is a vile and despicable coward. Coward means to frighten, and cowardice, want of courage to feint danger, timidity, pusillanimity, fear of exposing one's person to danger. Coward alone is loss of fame, said Dryden. So, a coward is one whose fears come uppermost. And I've been showing you those kangaroos as an example of things you see when you haven't got a gun. Not because I wish I had a gun to shoot them, but because if you haven't got a gun, you don't carry the atmosphere of death upon your person. You're not broadcasting the idea of wanting to shoot shit. You're not solving the ballistic equation for bullet drop and windage and possibly deflection if you've got a moving target for everything that you see. And when you carry a gun, that's what you're doing. And when you're carrying a gun and you're solving the ballistic equation, because you've got a gun and you know that if you want to hit what you can see, you have to solve the equation because it's not a fucking magic death ray. After a while, you begin to realise that everybody else could be carrying a gun and they could be solving the ballistic equation on you. And that's when you start to get to worry about everything that's around. You know, if a policeman arrests you and you want to run him out of town, what you got to do is make sure that every time they see you for the rest of their life in the town, when they see you, you are already looking in their direction and you're nodding to them and saluting them. And they realise after a while that you've already had time, if you chose to have pulled a gun and shot them. And because they carry a gun, that weighs very heavy on their mind. And you know what they do? Well, Cindy, all the ones who've ever arrested me, they left town. Because I contend that carrying a weapon makes them a coward because they start solving those equations and working them backwards. And the fear builds up and they know they've got that tiny little hole in the barrel that the bullet comes out and they've got to hide a cubic foot of vital meat behind that little hole and keep it between their vital meat and everything in the universe that might be theoretically dangerous. So cowards carry weapons, and carrying a weapon makes you into a coward. It's a psychological feedback loop. And the psychological construct that arises to reinforce and defend this state of affairs is what I would call clinical paranoia. Now, when I was a student nurse, we had some lectures in psychiatry for about a month, and I passed an exam in it, got 100% actually, and from memory we were taught paranoia has a psychiatric definition that goes: paranoia is a psychiatric medical condition comprising delusions of grandeur, persecution fantasies, and generalised lack of logical thought. Right? Let's have a look and we'll see what Noah Webster's dictionary said about paranoia 50 years ago. And we'll see how that applies to the idea that when you've got fuck all chance of being shot, and you'd have 74 times less than that if you took the guns out of society, 25% of the Americans think they need to have a gun to protect themselves. Okay, we're up to page 1215. Paranoia. Para and Greek noun nous for mind. In psychiatry, a psychosis in which there are delusions of grandeur, hallucinations, and feelings of untoward pride and hatred. The zombie apocalypse! Preppers, preppers, preppers! Untoward pride and hatred, all of which are logically systematized so that the individual actually believes his disordered perceptions. Paranoiac, noun, one affected with paranoia, a victim of systematized delusions. Paranoiac, adjective, of or pertaining to paranoia, characterized by systematized delusions. Okay, so by the ghost of Noah Webster, I call upon you, the NRA and the preppers, to wake up to yourselves. By carrying a weapon, you are not proclaiming your bravery and your righteousness. You are proclaiming your craven cowardice. You are demonstrating to the world that you are scared. Now, if you're an atheist, a practicing atheist, I can understand that, because atheists have no cosmic scoreboard effect to rely on. No God theory. No karma, no fates, no great wheel of life, no biome, no rainbow serpent. The atheists have got nothing but what they can notice about to happen to themselves and what they can do about it. But if you've got any claims to a God theory, then carrying a weapon to defend yourself against bad shit that hasn't happened yet, surely this is blasphemy, hypocrisy. I mean, apart from thou shalt not kill and turn the other cheek and judge not thy fellow human, the whole idea that whatever God theory you say you follow is incapable of keeping you safe, and therefore you need a death machine ready to kill anybody that scares you. That is shitting on every God theory worth paying attention to. You are putting yourself above other people on the planet because you think you are more worthy. In whose fucking eyes are you more worthy? The idea is to be selfless, turn the other cheek. If somebody really, really, really fucking needs to go to court and get busted for murder, that's better than me having to explain to my creator God theory why I killed some scumbag because I was frightened. And that's what it boils down to. You're either an upfront atheist, or you're a practicing fucking atheist, or you can't see any need for having a firearm because it's up to the cosmic scoreboard. It's not up to me to judge every other individual. I don't know what's going on in their head. But in order for everybody to have the free will to make bad decisions, there has to be some innocent victims, and people always die at their spiritual peak. So if it's not possible for me to do any better in the world than I've already done right now, if I can't learn to be a better person than I am right now, if I can't do any good in the world for anybody else than I've already done, but I'm otherwise not a bad bloke, well, okay, maybe it is, just and fit and meet in the grand scheme of things that I get taken off the playing board when I am right at my peak, and before I can maybe be tempted to go and do something silly which would reduce my benefit to the cosmos as a whole. And if the best I can be is somebody else's learning experience, then so be it. It is better to be non-resistant. It is better to be selfless. And really, only a blasphemous, hypocritical, atheistic, paranoid coward finds it necessary to carry a concealed weapon to buy a fucking loaf of bread at the supermarket, let alone wear a flak jacket in the main street of a town where there's never been a bloody bank robbery in 150 fucking years and no copper has ever been shot at by surprise. But that's what I see when I go to town. Allegedly brave police orifices with a 16-shot semi-automatic sidearm and a flak jacket and a can of capsicane and a folding baton and a taser, going to buy morning tea on foot in a disarmed, peaceful town. You know, like paranoid people carry guns and carrying guns turns you into a coward. I'm sure I've offended enough people by saying that, and I'm approaching the upload limit. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao. If this wasn't true, this kangaroo would not be here, and nor would her daughter. Bye.